Hey, everybody, welcome back. I've got Sam Pogue with me. He's always ready to have a conversation, and that's one of the things I love about this guy. So, Sam is currently a true coach, but he's had a really cool career kind of getting to this point. And one of the things that I wanted to talk with him about is how he's built his network because he has a legitimate network that is strong. It's very, very good. He's got his foot in the door of a lot of different places, and he purposely built it. But he didn't build it just to have a network. He built it for the relationships and for the right reason. So, Sam, do me a favor. Just give us a little bit of background on, where you came from, what you do, and I'd love for you to kind of use it in the context of network in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's easy to look at it now if you saw where I'm at to say like, oh, he must have been at some top tier facility because I did come from Onnit to have this amazing network. And Onnit definitely was the catalyst for me to reach a lot of people that I didn't have access to. But I started my career as a membership counselor at 24 Hour Fitness in 2008, right? So it's not like I came into this at like some bougie facility or having a deep network of a great strength coach behind me or a professor that recommended me somewhere. It was kind of like I fell into this industry because you can take a weekend course and become a personal trainer. So as much as it like that area gets dogged on, it's also like, hey, like there's a lot of great people in this industry because of that. And I do want to make sure that coaches see that like, hey, you don't have to start your career Eric Cressy's or Exos to like have this amazing network and just spread. So when I moved to Austin, Texas from Portland, Oregon in 2008, I did so with the intention of getting out of the fitness industry. It really wasn't like I set out to like, I want to go work on it. I did want to be a member at the gym because I was a big fan of Joe DeFranco, who I did not know at the time. And he decided that he was going to merge with Onnit. And so I was like, holy crap, I need to be just a member at this gym. And so that led me to be the very first member. And it really, that was like the steps for me to become the catalyst for me to have that skill set. In terms of networking as a skill, for me, I am this hyper extroverted, like I do like talking, I have that gift of gab, and I like it, but I was also put in a situation in life that it fostered it. So it allowed me to get a lot of reps early. My mom was a youth minister at a Catholic church. So I was at church all the time. And that's like, when you're that kid and you're very visible, like you're shaking the bishop's hands and you're talking to the old ladies and you're helping the kids at the Bible camps and reading at mass and having to talk to adults. And that's a really hard skill for an adolescent teenager or a pre-adolescent teenager to talk to adults. On the flip side, my grandpa, who is one of my best friends, was like on city council. And so he was very like, hey, like everybody knew him in town. He was also a postal man for like 40 years. So he knew everybody's name. And so, when you're Joe's little helper, like you just end up talking to people throughout the community. And so early in, I had to develop just the awareness of how to be present and how to have a conversation. And it really, when you look at networking, a lot of it isn't like any special skill set other than, hey, having a really good conversation with someone that's actually memorable or leaves an impression on them that says, damn, that person's sharp, or I really like them, or wanting them to have another question.
Were you conscious of what you were doing in terms of, hey, I need to have these conversations? Were you conscious of that at 13 years old, or was it just, it just happened?
It just kind of happened. And I was in an environment where I had to do it so much that it was, it's kind of a feast or famine. And that's like any new skill, right? There's like, you can like dream of all the perfect scenarios to learn a skill, but like at the end, until you throw yourself in the deep end, I just had to do it at a young age.
Do you think that the religious aspect, or let me say that the framework or the foundation of religion for you guys helped you be more open to those conversations? Like, I'm not sure I'm asking the right question,
Yeah.
but like I'm trying to understand like was that its own network that you sort of learned from and saw how people interacted?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you saw everything from the person who there was amount of control. Like there was definitely like different volunteer groups inside of the church, and you watched politics play out and you watched people make maneuvers and you're like, wow, why are they doing that? That doesn't make sense. Right. And you're like, that's the, and you have to deal with it at times, like I'd have someone yelling at me for the way I mowed the lawns. I'm like, dude, I just do the lawns. Like, I don't have any say here. I just like, leave me alone.
What are some of those political groups? And I don't mean just inside of the church, but like principally speaking, like, you've got aggressive people who are just trying to like, elbow their way through. You've got calm people. You've got the kind of like the puppet masters. What are some of the big players in networks that you have seen?
Yeah, you always have the person who wants to position themselves and make sure everyone knows who they are in the room. Sometimes it's done well with tact, and it's done in a way to like, hey, I'm just going to set the precedence of the room and make sure we know that who's who. Because there's times like, and this is where people get a lack of confidence really hurts, because sometimes you do need to set who you are in the room, or sometimes like you do need to establish who you are and what you do and be able to talk about what you do in a way that comes across super passionate, that you're really authentic without being like, oh, like, I kind of do this thing. And, inherently learning how to talk about yourself or learning how to be present amongst all these different types of people is just sales. You're just selling yourself. Because at the end, it doesn't matter if you're selling copy machines, office to office, candy bars for your baseball team, candles, whatever, the sticky shit that goes on for Christmas holiday, right? It's all the same. You just have to go up and say, hey, Grandma Betty, I'm raising money for this. And like, she's not buying sticky things. She's buying me over and over and over. So this group, you see that. And so you start seeing the person that knows how to, like, the hyper confidence, or they set the alpha in the room, we'll say. And I hate using that term, but you have someone who also on the reciprocity to that, or reciprocal to that, that doesn't respond well. Some people are going to gravitate towards that energy. Wow, that's the leader. That's the person we can take our guidance from. And there's someone in the corners like, that rubs me the wrong way. And they're going to have their own initiatives. And at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to make moves to do the best thing they know how to do, right? For them to be successful. We are taught how to make those moves through childhood and through past experiences. And we're taught what to expect when we do X thing and how someone might respond, right? So what is
your style? Like, and I know obviously you can play chameleon, so I'm not trying to box you in here, but what would you say, like, you go into a room that's important, let's say you were in a room with Joe DeFranco and some other players, and you wanted to make and I'm going to try to be coy in my words, you wanted to make the right impression. How would you go about that?
I think the timing of how you approach someone and what you do with that opportunity is really key. And I actually wrote an article about this on how to network, and hopefully people go check it out. But, there's timing to it, right? Like, Jim, if you're speaking at a conference and I'm at that conference, I'm like, holy shit, I want to talk to Jim. Like, I really love his blog. I've done all his programs. He's just a guy I really, really admire. Trying to grab you coming off the stage is probably not the time to want to grab you, right? Or like, oh, maybe this person like looks hyper busy. They're on their phone. They're kind of like jetting, right? Like maybe they got to pee, right? Like the amount of times like you're like, dude, I just got to pee. Can I just have a moment, right? But people want to talk, and you want to respect that. But like trying to read body language, right? But also, when you see that person, they're surrounded by a bunch of people. They're just like, oh, they're just fielding a lot of questions. That's probably not the best time. Like you want to find and create an opportunity for you to start a dialogue, and a dialogue that creates the window for you to have a conversation that's not surface level. Because ideally you should go in to have a conversation and like, man, I'm going to tell you what I really appreciate. Like, hey, dude, I loved this blog. Could you maybe expand on this thought? Or if you get the opportunity for someone's time you respect, honor their time by showing that you've done your research and that you come to the table with something different, or approaching it different, or asking something more in depth. Right? I really love watching great interviews. And my favorite interview right now is Hot Ones on YouTube by Sean Evans. And he interviews celebrities while they eat chicken wings. And consistently, all these celebrities who get hammered on by different questions all the time are like, dude, you're a really good interviewer. And it gets them to change their tone. So I think immediately when you get an opportunity to talk to someone, are you coming into that conversation with something of relevance, right? Because of course it's valuable for you to talk to them. Is it valuable for them to talk to you? And I want people to look at that. And I use this strategy with networking across the board. Do you have something of value to offer that's just other than your presence, right? And you have to play that, right? Like if you're a young coach and you're just aspiring to grow, well then shit, like I want to impress you by being a really good student. Holy shit, like, damn, you read like 15 of my blogs and you're asking me a really great question about X that maybe I haven't gotten to. And that makes me like, damn, I should maybe write about that. You're going to remember that person.
And the fact that if you can take that information and create an authentic question, so something that drives me nuts if I'm at, if I speak somewhere and somebody comes up to me is it's like they read the first paragraph of one blog. They tell me they've read everything that I've done, and they can't put anything together. And I know that they don't actually care about what they're saying.
Yep.
They're just trying to get, something from me, which, by the way, welcome to LinkedIn right now. LinkedIn's it's becoming a cesspool for that. It's unbelievable, which is unfortunate because I think it's a super powerful platform. But walk us through what preparation and execution of providing value to the person you're trying to network with could look like.
Well, I think we have to introspectively look at and say, what value do I have to offer? And what do I have to potentially give this person? And at the time, if I don't have any, if I don't run another blog that I can offer hey, Jim, I really love the way you write. Would you like to write a column once a week or something for our column? I can offer you value because I can give an impact to your business. Okay. If I don't have something of value, well, then I have to recognize that every moment of time I get from that person is a gift. And what I do with that gift is to make sure that they know I'm taking every moment of that opportunity to do something with it, right? So for me, I got to have a cheat code because by the time I really started networking in the fitness space, I had a backing of Onnit behind me, right? So I was able to offer, hey, you want to come teach a seminar here? Hey, I can send you some equipment. Hey, you want some free supplements, right? I was able to give value without really having to have any of my own, right? But initially, as I'm starting to push my name around, yeah, of course, I get to go to all the events and I'm the guy that's there because I'm just the Onnit person that does that job. But you start getting it started getting shifted for me because I was at every event. And all of a sudden it's damn, this dude's at every single thing. And you're like, man, okay, I appreciate you just working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you have a conversation hey, what are you guys working on? And I can speak intelligently to what my role is on it, what we're working on, what the kind of the business looks like. And that person's like, okay, you have something intelligent to talk about that gave me insight into something I was curious about, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about that. What's funny, and here's a story that I hadn't really thought about for a little bit until now, but do you remember the first time I had a conversation with you?
Was it at OPEX?
So I was at OPEX, at least in terms of a job, but I was actually, Michael Bann introduced us because you were on it and you had talked to Michael about coming out and doing a seminar. So exactly like you just said. And Michael and I always have conversations what's worth your time and what's not, da-da-da-da-da. And so we chat and we want to jump on. I had my first conversation with you when I was at the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Vegas at Business Mastery with Tony Robbins. So I remember I left the immediate venue to jump on a call because Michael was jazzed about doing the conversation. But what I really took from that is you always followed up. You didn't it wasn't just a conversation and then out, right? Mm-hmm. It was a conversation and then ultimately you kept in touch with me. You and Jessica came out, we did a podcast live at OPEX, you know what I mean? And we've continued that conversation going forward. So like you're saying, there's a reciprocity. There's also a consistency of conversation that I think a lot of people they lose, right? But one of the interesting things that I've learned over the last couple of years is, well, more than a couple of years, I guess, is that you have to enjoy the conversation that you're having, or else you're so much less likely to continue on that conversation. So I think there's kind of a misnomer about networking. It's okay, there's networking for work, but you're never going to develop a tight network that can expand if you have no interest in what other people are doing or saying, or what industry you're even in. It's clear, man, you like fitness and health, and it's really clear that you like talking to people. And so I think coaches, health practitioners, doctors for that matter, need to think about that a little bit when they start networking. So
well, if I can jump in, you hit the nail on the head, right? So if you guys are familiar with a club in high school programs called DECA, which is a business and marketing club, one of my childhood best friends, Daniel, his older brother, Chris McCoy, became the national president of DECA. And so he took a year off before college and toured around and became the president of that, which was awesome. And he's run built multiple nonprofits and sold them. And he's in San Francisco doing his thing. But, Daniel, he'd come to my house after school and we taken a basketball practice kind of thing. And he looked at me one day and he said, if you just remember one unique thing about every single person you meet, you'll be fine. And I remember that thinking, and I had to have been 12 at this time. Maybe he was in high school. And I was like, yeah, because like, so if I don't use someone's name right away, like I'm going to freaking forget it. Like,
Totally. Yeah.
But like, if I remember something about you, I'll remember something about our conversation, because here's the way I explain it. Let's say we're sitting in a bar and someone walks in the room and you're just like, oh my gosh, what a douchebag. Like their energy is just awful. But they take their jacket off and they have your alma mater sweatshirt on. And you're like, bro, let's go. And you start singing your chant and you're like, whatever reason, your energy just changed. Why? Because you found something in common with them. So if you guys ever get a chance and you watch me interact, especially in a big room or like an NSCA type conference, when you interact with someone, how quick can you find something in common with them that may not be the normal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least find something that puts them in their wheelhouse, right? And that gets them to be on. So like, oh, okay, I know your thing. Like, I don't care if it's fitness or can I find that, oh, maybe it's because you like powerlifting or you like nutrition or you like wakeboarding. But that way we always have a staple to our relationship. And if you remember what people are good at and what they do, because you had a great conversation with them, you remember to like why my network got bigger was because you start introducing people, right? It was never about what I got out of things. It was always about like, no, what do I have available that I can give you that might be of value? Because Jim, you and I have known each other a while, and we may never exchange hands in business and do something that changes financial money. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a huge impact on each other's lives. I might introduce you to someone that like changes your life. You might introduce me to someone that changes my life. Why? Because if you don't know what I like or what I'm about, you're not going to think about me. Right. And so that's the real trick to networking. Networking isn't about how many people you know. It's about how often your name comes up in other people's conversations. And consistently, you need to start putting your name and start bringing other people's names. So that way you're constantly being brought up, because all of a sudden, like, I want to be that person to where it's like, oh, how'd you guys meet? Oh, through Sam. Oh, how'd you guys meet? Oh, through Sam. Oh, do you know Sam? Like, I want that to be a question on podcasts for people to be like, oh, do you know Sam Pogue? Yeah. Right. Like, because I think it would be fun, like in a funny way.
Yeah.
Right. But like, that's where it comes from. And if you don't think about what people are interested in, you don't find out what they're good at, you don't find out what they're about, you don't have any other context. Because man, you've done a lot of big deals in the room. Like, and like shit, like the deal could be the best deal in the world, but like if your gut tells you no because you just don't get good vibes from that person, you don't want to do the deal.
Yeah, right? There's so much to be said, particularly, well, all the time, but even in the big rooms where you actually have to body language your way into the start of that stuff that you're in common with. So I see a lot of people come up and they're just basically antagonistic in their body language, and they wonder why somebody's not reacting more positively to them. So it's like, and me, I'm a words guy. I think words are really, really powerful, but you have to combine words with, let's call it tactile, physiological, because that's what people unconsciously respond to, so let me sort of segue here a little bit. How are you networking, and what do you think people in our industry need to be doing to positively network during lockdown?
I think it's just a really good opportunity to look at how we approach our relationships. Early in, when I was a trainer full time, I was pretty good about just texting people randomly that I hadn't been in contact with in a while. Like once a month, it's just something I do. Like I got a few minutes, I'm like, oh, dude, I haven't. And coming back to it, like, oh, something makes me think of that person. Right. I see a movie that like, oh, Jim, like, what's up, man? How you doing? And it just like, if you consistently kind of make that effort, all of a sudden you're just starting conversations. And so, that was something I had for a long time. Now I'm kind of at a point where I almost feel like, oh shit, I can't maintain people the way I'd love to, with all those phone calls all the time. But it's engaging. And this is where social media is great. And I love social media because it allows me to digest what a lot of people are doing quickly, so I can stay up to date with what they're doing. Right? Like, you didn't have to text me to tell me you were whistling more. Right? I was able to see that and be like, oh, dope. Now I can like, hey, how's that going? What brought that up? And there's context to a story. Right? And that's where social, I think, is phenomenal. So coaches, get in the habit. If you haven't reached out to every single client you've ever even talked to, hey, how are you doing through this process? Is there anything I can do to help you? Right? With no plug, no sell, right? People have a great bullshit meter, right? Like, whatever realm you come from, most people have a pretty good bullshit meter to be like, that's kind of rubbing me the wrong way. And here's the thing. If you're someone that is in a transactional business where you have to exchange money for services, most people know that at some point you might ask for money, right? The trick is, can you make them feel like they don't give a shit about paying you money? They want to pay you money because like it was never about the money. Like this person's texting me for 3 years asking how I'm doing every week, or, you know, just so that way it never feels like we did that kind of, that was our relationship, right? Like I still maintain a relationship with a good amount of my clients that I haven't trained since 2014. I went to New York on a surprise trip to surprise one of my clients for her baby shower. Right. And it was just like, yeah, I haven't trained her in forever, but she's like my big sister, right? She's helped me negotiate jobs. And it's just like to have, like, I text all my clients on their birthdays, and try to like just to stay in touch. So coaches, look at how you manage your relationships. I know small talk sucks, but like you got to get your relationships to the point where they're not small talk, to where you can, it's like a friendship that you can pick up every so often. Like all of a sudden, like, hey, we just go, right? Like, you know, Jim and you and I have now been on enough podcasts together and done things to where we can start and like, we could take our conversation a million ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, like we don't have to have a, here's what we're going to talk about today.
Totally.
And I think when we can get over that, and when you start doing a better job asking great questions of people, like, and that's where it's like, tell me what you're into, or where'd you come from? And that's why I'm about the story. Like, tell me about your story, because that tells me everything I need to know. So, you know, reach out, you know, if there's a coach that you really admire their blog, right? Send them an email, right? Like, let's be honest, most coaches don't have personal assistants fielding those emails. It goes right to them. And tell them, hey man, I really appreciated this blog. This blog really helped me out. And just start by recognizing people for doing really good work and honoring them. And I think a lot of coaches don't do a good job of this, and that's honoring the people that helped get you to where you are, right? I will forever speak great things about On It because it gave me so much. Are there things that weren't ideal? Yeah, there were things everywhere you don't like, but we have to look at, like, I recognize that through my journey, I wouldn't be where I am had I not gotten the opportunity on it. And had I not started meeting the people, and John Wolf giving me that chance, right? And Aubrey giving me that chance. Like, I have to recognize like those people got me there, right? So if I think it's really important to recognize, like, hey, how did you meet someone? And then like, hey, oh man, I met that person through Jim. Like, oh yeah, who's Jim? Like, oh, you should like find his stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's a consistent conversation around who people are, and this is where I am. And but also reaching out to these coaches and telling them they do good work, because it's not, you know, putting out content's tough, guys, right? Like
on that note, what is too much networking, or what is too much content in your mind?
Well, you know, too much networking is when it's not authentic, right? When it's just like, when you just like send me a DM right after you Facebook request me and like trying to like, hey man, what's up? How you doing? I'm like, dude, like, do you think I want to tell you about all my shit right now? Yeah. No, right? Like, it probably starts off by like you interacting with some things I put out. Like, oh man, I really enjoyed that blog. Oh, dope, man. How's it going? Like, give me a chance to feed into it if we haven't had that chance, right? But that also gives me a safe space to like, hey, can we start having a dialogue? I'm open to being accessible, right? But it has to come from like, are you going to do something good with it, right? Like, and you know, that's the disappointing thing when you see coaches, because they try and it's good intentioned, right? But it feels so just like, dude, I get it. You're just trying to be Mr. like networker, but like, it's so like, you don't give a shit about me. You're just trying to meet me to meet the next person.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah.
And it's just the tone, like, and that's where it's like, damn, I really like, I want to get to know you. So like, tell me about things that you've liked. Oh, okay, I saw this and I saw this. What do you think of that? And like, you know, have really engaging things to say. And that's going to, you know, for cold relationships, that's where we're at. You can't go meet people at a conference these days. So engage with their content. Ask a great question about it. Hey, where would this apply? How did you discover this? Who taught you this? Right. And being willing to talk about, you know, where this lineage of conversation is. And, you know, from your end as the speaker and as the coach, like, I think just reaching out, but you have to do it authentically. Because you have to imagine, like, how many LinkedIn recruiter requests a day do you get on top of Facebook, on how many digital marketers like, hey, you want to 10x your business?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's brutal.
Right. So like, do you not want to look like one in a million? Right. We came through the world of resumes, right? Like, if your resume is on a stack of 1,000 financial analysts trying to get a job at Goldman, right? Like, are you going to spray yours with perfume to make yours look out? Or how are you going to make yours stand out in a stack? Right. And like, that's the same thing on the internet now. There's so many people commenting, there's so many trolls, and you get a couple shitty interactions. You don't want to do it. So make your authentic interactions real.
That's why there's something interesting about video calls. And then there's something even more interesting about being live is, like you said, the bullshit meter is up even more. Well, it's actually interesting. I find my bullshit meter is up pretty high right now online too, but in person, if somebody's paying attention, you can really tell if somebody has, let's call it, positive intentions, or they're legitimately interested in the conversation. And, I'm sure that you feel the same way. Like I like having conversations with most anybody if
Yeah.
they're interested in the conversation. And I can have a lot of fun talking about different topics that I might not be initially interested by, but become interested based on the person's energy, in the
Hmm.
conversation. It's when there's a level of fakeness and when there's a very low level of energy, it's just like, ugh,
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. And I think that when you're trying to do this like for a living, you know what I mean? As a coach, I'm trying to get out there, I'm trying to get more clients and whatever, you sometimes can forget that every one of those conversations needs to be like that. So maybe if you're having 10 conversations, you should have 4, but all 4 of them should be epically good and followed up on and organized and the
Hmm.
whole 9 yards. So where do you think people kind of get in trouble and obviously we hit on the inauthentic
Hmm.
conversations, but where else are people getting in trouble when they're trying to build a network?
I think it's when you're getting hungry, when you're starting to get really hungry, and that a couple breaks haven't gone your way, and you're starting to claw at shit, right? You're starting to scrap, and you start to be more willing to deviate from your character, and you start being more willing
Mm.
to deviate from your morals and your values because you're like, shit's not working, right? Like, I get it. Most coaches are going to hear that and say, yeah, you see the freaking Insta booty pics and she's got 20 million followers, or he's got 20 million followers, he's got abs or whatever, and I'm putting out really legit content, and like it's just not being received well, and it's just I'm not growing the same rate. And I know it's really frustrating to look and see and look at the perception, but we also need to take a step back and look at like, okay, we're sex sells. Like, let's just get over that. Yep, let's just acknowledge that in the fitness industry, people with abs are going to get opportunities because they have abs, whatever, right? So now it turns into like, what's the real content that you have to say? And you have to look at what are you really trying to say. So I think that, and I say that because like right now there's a lot of coaches really having to make some tough decisions if they can survive this, right? Either their gym or their personal training business. And it's easy, like, okay, maybe that's going to work. And they're just willing to try anything to work. And I encourage people to take a step back and look at their why and their story about like what got them here and why fitness is important to them, and look at what you have to offer. Like, what is it that you like to connect with people on that makes you more authentic, right? Like if you're a personal trainer that loves jujitsu and you've been trying, you're struggling as a personal trainer and it's not working out, right? Find opportunities to get your conversations about jujitsu that also play in the fitness space. So that way it's like, oh, now you can talk about something that fires you up,
Hmm.
right? Instead of like finding things that like, oh shit, things aren't going well. And you're just kind of like throwing haymakers, right? It's the
Yeah.
12th round and you're just throwing it up. And it's just from people losing sight of where they really are and what they're really trying to get out. And I know that sounds so ethereal and there's no real action to it, because I think introspection is the spot that most people have to get to,
Yeah,
right?
it's interesting if we go to the abs and the booty short idea, it's something that I think might actually calm coaches down is that the reason why it's easier to have that many followers is because people actually want that. Like that's what they're seeking, right? Like
Yep.
they want to look at that or interact with that. So it's like, okay, it's like if that's just something that a lot of people want to look at, do I need to play in that world or do I want to play in a different world? And I don't care. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think you should play
Yeah.
where you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you're going to play in a world that's not, the abs world, then you had better have something interesting that people want to watch that isn't abs. And I think one of the things I noticed with a lot of coaches is that their content is boring. Their content lacks any type of creativity or design. Their content's not consistent. And it's sort of lacking in, let's just call it a story arc. Like there's no forward movement in the conversation. It's just kind of like I did this, and then a couple weeks later, it's like I did that, and there's no connection between the two, and people they're not learning who that person
Yeah.
really is. Um, but it should be calming to know that it's like abs are just one part of the fitness industry, and it's not
Yeah.
going anywhere.
Yeah.
You got to play in a different part, and you've got to be uniquely interesting in the section of the world that you play in.
Well, I think your content and your networking skills are the exact same thing, right? It's just, networking is handshakes and smiles and eye contact. Well, you don't have that in the digital marketing space. You have that blog post, you have that Instagram post, you have that email, you have that Facebook post or group, whatever that is. And you have to authentically come across as if you're right there with them, right? Like, how many articles are there about squat mechanics on the internet, right? A billion. Okay, if you're Johnny, whatever, little Johnny, and he's trying to like not have low back pain anymore, yeah, is he going to look at like, okay, I got to get my tibia to externally rotate 3 more degrees better if I have better extension on my big toe to create a better arch? You're going, what? How do they even do it? Versus as a coach, your conversation needs to be like, yeah, some people need to learn from that. And maybe coaches like learning that way. But you have to take that information and regurgitate it to someone else who you're talking to that's like, oh yeah, I don't like to deadlift because it's gonna hurt my back. I got a low back. I'm trying to get my back better. And you're like, yeah, but like it's the same thing as like lifting the wheelbarrow up, man. Right? We're just trying to get those muscles to work so that way they don't light up and they're not sore for weeks on end. Oh yeah, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna, blah 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 blah, whatever your sales spiel is. But connecting things to their story, right? And that's where we come into like coaches. If you're having a conversation with your clients, you need to get to know the client, right? Like, it's about like finding out what are they sitting there in front of you. And I know you hear this all the time and people always say, well, you got to find their why. And you're like, well, I asked them questions. Well, yeah, people, if you've just met someone, they're not going to tell you their deepest, darkest secrets on day one, right? It's probably going to be like an escalating effect of like getting to know each other, because you have to consistently prove and show them that you are someone they can trust, because people's body image struggles and challenges, or the way they feel, or their nutrition and their mindset, like that's deep-rooted shit. And we're dealing with deep-rooted shit. I mean, there's a heavy socio-psychological variable in training, right? Psychology trumps physiology every day, right? You could have the best program in the world. So it's about connecting and finding someone's why. And that makes content, that makes networking, that makes every conversation 10 times easier, because you're talking to them about how they're going to understand it the best.
What are the next big plays you're going to make in terms of your network or your content? Like what's next for Sam Pogue?
Yeah, so I just read a book recently called Steal the Show by Chris Port. And they also, him and his wife, Amy, run a speaking school called Heroic Public Speaking. And so while I do really enjoy speaking, I speak at a lot of events, I want to get really good. And I want to be like keynote speaker at a college level really good. And, I started, you watch stand-up comedy and you forget, oh, they're really rehearsed, right? Like I'm really good off the cuff, and I just kind of pick up and go because I've had enough experiences. I can draw upon it. I like to talk, not a big deal, but like, oh, you watch one of those when they bring all 3 punchlines into one big punchline at the end, you're like, no way. And that's like a great speech, right? And so I definitely want to improve my speaking career. And so they have a speaking school that I've gotten into, and I was supposed to go in March, and really starting to get into that space, because for me, while, I do a lot of speaking, and like I can be one of the best speakers there, because I'm not going to be the one on PowerPoint being like, okay, this is what's next. I'm like, hey guys, what's up? And I have this really hot open, which is a great way to catch your attention. And it's just going to be like, oh, you're just a different dynamic. But I already have that skill and I don't have to try, right? I need to get good at being able to wrap it all up and have a takeaway and have something digestible and a nugget that's not 4 stories deep, that's only 1 story deep. And I use my hands with purpose, right? When you walk on stage, you don't walk and talk, you stop, you make the point, you walk, getting like I love to do a TED talk, right? And like that kind of stuff. So for me, I think that my best ability now is, okay, I've been given an opportunity and a gift, that how can I go reach also as far as I can with my skill set, so that way all the people that I have in my network, I can also share with them along the way. Because you best believe whenever I meet someone that's like, oh my gosh, like I really like this and this, I'm like, yeah, you got to meet Jim, right? I don't know why, but like, here's why I think you guys are going to meet. And all of a sudden it's like, damn, yeah, we're going to start a business. And you're like, dope, right? Like I want to be that person that's like, oh, that motherfucker's in everybody's freaking cobwebs. And he's so wrapped up in it to where it's like, that's how you get your foot in everything, right?
Oh,
it's just
cool.
like, you have everybody being like, I met this guy through Sam. Like I was at this event with him and we were having dinner and all of a sudden we're chatting, right? And I love having those interactions, or to be able to watch people like, look at that relationship fostered because of these layers of people I've introduced you to. So now I'm in a spot to where I really want to grow my next level and improve to increase my reach, so that way I can take my next step in life.
Awesome, man. I love hearing it. I always enjoy the conversations. I'm sure that we'll do it again soon. Where can people find you online?
You can find me at sampogue.com. You can find me on Instagram at SPOGUE86. And I'm regularly there. And then head over to truecoach.co and you can find my blog that I write. And I write a couple blogs a month there and put out a lot of interviews with guys like Jim talking about fitness business. So check out my content there as well.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on today, Sam. Have a good one, dude.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.